Hi, I'm Carol O'Mara, horticulture entomologist with Colorado State University Extension here in Boulder County. March is here and it's time for us to go ahead and get our spring cleanup chores done. You're the lucky few that have some fruit trees in your yard. We're going to offer some tips on how you can prune them so that they stay healthy and productive all season long for you. Let's start by taking a look at some of the stone fruits. This is a cherry tree here. And the cherries, fortunately for us, the sour cherries grow very well over here on the Front Range. They don't need a lot of pruning to keep them in shape. They don't really need anything other than for us to come out and take a look to see if they have any type of branches that got damaged over the winter, maybe from some snow load, or maybe they got some sun scald, if they were diseased and need to come off, or they're crossing one another. So the first thing that you do with any of your fruit trees is to go out and take a look at it by standing back and seeing the big picture, making sure that all the branches look great. If they don't, let's get in there and prune a few. The best friend that you have is a pruner like this. It's called a bypass pruner. And what happens is the blades pass each other instead of like the anvil pruner where you have a flat plate and the blade comes down on it. These instead pass by one another. They make a clean cut on the wood, which is what we want anytime we're working with a woody plant. So you have these, and we're using these for twigs that are going to be less than about a ½ an inch in diameter. So most of these on this young cherry tree are small enough for us to use our hand pruner on. What we're doing is taking a look. Do you see this one here, this branch that's going towards the interior of the tree? We don't want that. We want branches that don't bump into one another and those that go out and away, keeping the inside of the tree open to sunlight and air. When you're making your pruning cut, it's important to know exactly where you're going to be cutting it off so that you can stay just outside of certain areas of the wood. When you're looking at a branch like this one, as it connects into the twig and the branch, you'll see a small wrinkling. It looks like a horse collar. Right there is the branch bark collar, and we want to stay outside of that by about ½ an inch so that the tree can seal over that wound with no problem. I'm going to clip this inside branch here close to that branch collar with just a little snip, and we're pruning the tree. Standing back and looking, other branches that you want to pay attention to are those that might have, well, crossed one another like this, but this one has also died out. You can see the color is not quite so healthy on this one. It's a little shriveled. It was winter killed, so I'm going to take that back also. Working through your tree, it gets to be something that you can do pretty quickly, just over a lunch hour or something. So get out and take a look at your cherry trees and just clean them up. Other than that, you really don't have to worry about cutting them to stimulate new growth because they're going to be setting fruit on all these small spurs that you see here that have several buds to them. There's different types of buds on all of these trees, and these little clusters here, that's where the cherries are going to form their fruit, as opposed to the woody buds that are just being set in singles like this down here. Some of these buds, they're going to be leaves, and these are going to be fruit. Let's go take a look at some peaches and really get into some of the art and science of pruning a fruit tree. Here taking a look at a peach tree in the landscape, and as you can see, this winter has not been very kind to it. It had a bit of a snow load and it snapped a major branch on it. What's left now is a little bit of wood, and we want to get this cleaned off as much as possible in a clean cut so that it's not tearing down and into the main trunk here. What we'll have to do at this point, as you can see, every one of these cavities is going to be capturing any rainfall or irrigation. It's going to become a haven for insects and disease. So when I get out a nice saw, I'll go ahead and make a nice clean cut. But this branch, as you can see, it's growing downwards and it will not fruit well for me. So I'm probably going to cut even further into the trunk itself with a 45-degree angle so that water sloughs off and it's a nice smooth cut. If you've experienced some of this type of winter damage to some of the larger branches and you're left with a ragged area like this, one of the best things that you can do if you can't get in there and clean it out is to clean out and cut away some of the torn bark, just so that it doesn't become a place that harbors disease and insects. So try to get up there with a sharp tool and just try to clean away some of this ragged bark itself. You don't want to necessarily create a new wound, but you want to make sure that it's all cleaned up. And in some cases, it will take a little bit of a sharp knife in order to do that, to make a nice clean incision to just clean that bark out. But if you've had a branch that's struggled like this, you're going to want to come back and make a nice clean edge for the growing season so you don't have any insects or disease take up residence in that area. So the secret to keeping a peach tree or a nectarine tree in production is that they only fruit on one-year-old wood. So you're constantly in and working with these trees in order to keep new wood growing. This is not so with apples and pears. They like wood that's going to be about 3 years or older. But for peaches and nectarines, this means you're out putting your hands and pruners on these trees every single spring. Go out and take a look at your tree, and any of the branches that fruited last year, you can cut back partially in order to stimulate a brand new shoot. That shoot's going to grow through the season and then it'll fruit for you after that. But in the meantime, you want to cut it to an outward facing woody bud. And on peaches and nectarines, it's important to know what they look like, because unlike apples, it's not really obvious. When we're looking at a peach tree, they will throw single, double, or triple buds like this one. What you want to do is to be selecting a woody bud like this. It's got an arrowhead shape, is a little scaled, and held tightly to the branch. A flower bud is a little plumper, probably doesn't have the scales, and looks significantly larger. But because these trees will also throw them in pairs or triplets, if you're going to be cutting back to an outward facing bud like this one and you're not sure which one to leave, make sure you're choosing the one that looks like a small arrowhead. On this one it would be this bud here. And then we're going to rub off the other bud, just like this. We're not going to try and cut it off, but we are going to rub it off. And then we cut to just a quarter of an inch above that in the direction of the bud itself. And that's how we're going to be pruning these trees. So you go through and you're looking at the branch and you're choosing an outward facing bud and you're pruning just in front of it. Just like that. Oops. Now, I'm not going to tear this off because I don't want to rip the bark, so I'm going to go back and snip it. You don't have to worry that you're going to do every single branch this way. Ideally, a peach or a nectarine tree should really only have about a quarter of it in production in any one year. So this tree really fruited pretty heavily for us last year. What I'm going to do now is go back and treat only approximately 25% of the branches like this spring to start new growth going. Then next year I'll go back and hit another 25% and so forth. And once we get into the rhythm of just doing a quarter of the tree every single year, then each of the branches are going to be producing the right amount of fruit so it doesn't overload it and break them off. I'm Carol O'Mara, helping you garden.